My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Children's Coalition Incorporated. We are presently at the Veterans Memorial Center on Merritt Island in Florida. And what is your name, Miss?
My name is Elizabeth Hill Thiers,
Okay.
also known as Beth.
Okay, Beth. When is your birthday?
9/30/1968.
Okay, and where were you born?
Berea, Ohio.
Okay. What is your current address?
6175 Corning Road, Port St. John, Florida.
Right, and let's see, what branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Navy.
Okay. What year did you go into the Navy?
I went into the Navy in June 1986.
Okay, and what was your rank when you separated?
I was a hull maintenance technician, second class. That made me a petty officer, second class. Quiet. E5.
Funny. Okay, you're making me laugh. Okay. How long did you serve? How many years?
I served 5 years.
Right. Okay. And what were you doing prior to going into the service?
I was in high school. I had just graduated, and I went in 17 days after I graduated from high school.
Okay. Why did you choose that branch?
Because my brother was in it, and I wanted to. Really had wanted to go to college, and I was using the military as a way of going to college. That's what my recruiter said I could do.
Okay, cool. All right. Where did you go to basic training?
I went to basic training at RTC Orlando.
Okay,
Recruit Training Command in Orlando, back when there was a recruit. It's where Baldwin Park now is. The development is where the old Recruit Training Command used to be.
Okay.
That's where they used to send females at the time when I was in.
How long was basic training?
8 weeks.
What was it like being a female?
What it was like being a female? It was
in the military.
In boot camp, it was everybody. We were all females
right.
in our ranks. So at that time, it was different. It was challenging. I was in a very male-dominated rate, and I was not very good at what I did.
Did you say male-dominated rate?
Rate, yes. So in the military, in the Navy, at that time, you were assigned a rate, which is kind of like your job title. Mm-hmm. So, like my father-in-law was a sonar man, my husband was a gas systems turbine. You could be a damage controlman. You could be a hospital corpsman, things like that. That's your rate. That's kind of your job, and so your training went around what your job was in the Navy. So I went to what's called Hull Maintenance Technician A School in Philadelphia, because at the time they were trying to fill male-dominated rates with females. So despite having pretty decent grades in high school, it probably would have been given something else, but offered a different job. But at the time, that's what they were going for. I was told I could switch rates when I was in the Navy. As you notice, I was told that. I was 17. I was very naive and did not know that was probably not going to happen once I was in. Okay. Yeah, you live and learn. I figured I was 17. What do I know? Told to respect people in the military. So I went in. So that's what I went in, and what I trained to do was that.
How long was it training?
That training was about 3 months worth of training.
Okay.
So
12 weeks?
Yeah, a couple weeks, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm thinking I got August, September, October, November. So about 4 months. About 4 months.
Right. Oh.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I understand. No, not a problem.
Yeah, 4 months. So and that's they do. You do drafting. You do learn to work with metalwork. You learn to. So it's basically like having an extended shop class. Mm-hmm. And at that time, they had the damage controlmen and the HTs were still together. So I learned how to do firefighting on a ship, which actually was more fun. Trust me, it's fun. As long as it's not real. So that's what they trained me to do when I was in.
Okay. So after you had your training, where did you go for the training?
I went to Philadelphia, in Philadelphia shipyards.
Right.
So that's where the HTA school was. So we went to school there, and then we could train on actual ships so that we could see that. There was an old ship that was decommissioned that we could train on and actually see equipment and know how to move around the ship without hurting yourself, that kind of thing.
Did you get R&R while you were there? And were you off on the weekends or what?
If we didn't have duty, because we stood watch while we were in school.
Mm-hmm.
So if I didn't have duty, we had R&R.
Okay.
So I got to see Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Didn't have money to do much else.
Right, right. How was that? How was Philly?
It was eye-opening. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from a small town outside of Cleveland, so it was a much different to be in a big city like that. But it was also fun because I like history. I'm kind of a geek, so I got to do all sorts of, it was a mix of bars at night with the guys, and then going out and dragging them out to go see historical sites during the day.
Right.
So.
Okay. Did you visit Ben Franklin?
Visited Ben Franklin, visited the Archaeology Museum, visited Liberty Bell, Independence Hall, of course, you have to. Visited, I forget which ship it was. The Constitution was in there, yeah. Old Ironsides was there.
Okay.
And visited there was also a submarine. I can't remember what the submarine was. But yeah, so did as much as you can with the money you get.
Right, right, okay. How did your instructors treat you through basic training as well as your tech school?
Basic training was basic training. It's a mind game and trying to keep you out of your character and do stuff. So to me, basic training was just something to get through. I just kind of found it funny and ridiculous. And a little exhausting because they kept you up all night long, but
okay.
So but to me, basic training, I liked basic training when I was learning stuff. If we were out on the firing line, I loved learning how to run the hose, we got gassed. We had to learn how to use equipment to get gassed. I liked it when we were learning and doing stuff. I actually liked PT. A lot of the other stuff I just found annoying and ridiculous, and I'm like, this is really not going to help me much as learning to march together isn't as important as getting out and learning to work together and those kinds of things. And I like that. I liked that challenge.
Military bearing.
Yes. Really funny watching 17-year-olds try to learn military bearing.
Okay.
Because when I went in, they were actually letting people because they were trying to build up the military. This was during the Reagan era.
Right.
So they were trying to build up the military and build up a 300-ship Navy. So they were allowing people to come in between their junior and senior high school years, and then be in the reserves for the rest of high school, and then go in full time after they graduated. Right. So we had a lot of those people in. So we had a lot of very young people coming in. The only reason I was 17 was because I started school early. So. Okay.
All right. So, cool. So after your basic training and your MOS, where were you stationed? Where was your first duty station?
I was stationed on board the AFDM 7. It was a floating dry dock in Norfolk, Virginia.
And how long was that tour?
25T. Off and on for the rest of my time. Uh-huh. In the military, sometimes you are temporarily assigned to different duty stations. So I did different schools. So I did like firefighting school. I did general maintenance welder school, and I also, when our dry dock went to dry dock, they signed the females from the engineering section to go off and work on the USS Harry E. Yarnell, and so we were, from what we know, I've never researched it myself. But from what they told us, we were the first women to serve on board a combatant vessel as normal ship's company. So. Okay. All right.
And how long was that tour?
That was a little over 6 months, and then it did a couple weeks at the degaussing station, which is when they have. Apparently, ships collect a lot of electrical static and things, and so they basically degauss it. It's kind of like de-electrify it, and it's a station in the middle of it's the middle of the river, and I can't remember which river because Norfolk had about 3 or 4 that came through and went out through to Chesapeake. But it was out in the middle of the river, and so that's where the ships would come in, and they would basically send these big electrical wires up and over them. And so we worked there for a couple of weeks while we were waiting for our dry dock to come back.
Were there any casualties from the time you started up until this moment?
There were nobody died on our dry dock, but we certainly had a number of people got hurt because docking a big ship inside another big ship it can be dangerous if you don't have the correct people making sure that everything is done within the parameters of a safe docking. So we did get people who broke bones, and we didn't have anybody go over the side because we're a little too professional for that. A lot of close calls in life because it's a engineering it's a big engineering and a lot of heavy equipment and a lot of stuff going on at the same time.
Right.
But no, nobody died from anything that we did.
How about you? Did you suffer any injuries?
Mainly strain injuries. Broke a foot jumping off of something onto a hard deck. The typical type of stuff. Got flash burn from not having proper equipment. In my eye, flash burn is when you because when you strike an arc when you're welding, you put off a lot of UV light. So your equipment is basically a piece of sunglasses that are kind of on steroids. And if there's a crack or something in there, that light can get into your eye, and you can temporarily burn the retina in your eye. So that's called a flash burn. And of course, lots of little tiny burns because working with fire and metal, that's what you're going to do.
You have a disability from that, I take it?
No disability from it, no.
Right.
No, nothing that we've further did.
Okay. Did you ever see any combat?
No, did not see any combat.
All right, that's fine. So you were never a prisoner of war?
No prisoner of war or anything like that.
Good for you. What about medals and citations?
Basically got the good conduct medal, and then because I was serving during the first Gulf War, I did get the
Service medal?
Service medal.
Okay. Tell me a couple of your most memorable experiences from your military career.
Oh, because this is funny, because this is Memorial Day. Came up, and one of my friends wanted to see where I work, so I went up and looked up a bunch of pictures. I actually brought in, my husband wasn't on the ship anymore, but we brought in his ship. Big Spruance class destroyers are big enough that they stick out. Our dry dock was 500 feet long, and the Spruance class destroyers stuck out the other side. We've had times when you were talking about things that happen and why it's important to have people who know what they were doing. In a dry dock, a ship basically sits on a bunch of wood, and that wood has to be cut in a very specific manner and within, I think, like a quarter of an inch. I think our docking folks said for that ship to sit on there safely, and if it's not, we have to go down there and repair that. And we actually had that happen. One of our docking officers did not do their due diligence, and we had to go down there and basically go up underneath the ship and shim it up using wood shims pounded in up underneath the ship. Any dry dock days it's actually kind of cool. You basically take a big floating dry dock is about 3 stories up, and we take it down to the water, and that's kind of what my pictures were showing. That you can see us up 3 stories up, and then going all the way down to where you can touch the water from topside. The type of floating dry deck I was on it's a medium floating dry deck. So we basically brought in things like destroyers and small supply ships and frigates. But basically, it's about a 3-story high dry dock, and then you go all the way down to the water where you can actually touch the water, and using a system of ropes and a small boat, you guide it in, and it sits on these wooden blocks down in the dock basin. Okay. One of our more exciting moments was when there was a hurricane. It's the hurricane that hit Charleston. We had one of the ships from Charleston in our dry dock, and basically what they do is when there's a hurricane that comes in, they call all the ships from that area have to go out to sea. So even though the ship that was in our dry dock was not going to be near that hurricane. It was told to go out and go out for the hurricane. So we had to very hurriedly pull this ship off of out of our dry dock. Well, one of the things that happened is our dry dock is a World War II dry dock, and it rusted. What had happened was a hole had rusted in the deck up underneath some equipment that had gotten missed during the when the dry dock was when the dry dock itself was in dry dock. And so when we were taking that out, our front deck flooded up to our knees, and it would have flooded more, but ships are made to contain water in one area, but they also had to start letting the water out of the tank that was up underneath that deck, so that and in the meantime we were having to do what we call the ever illustrious and always the fun part of being in the military is the bucket brigade of taking the water and pulling it up and getting it out of the deck while we're in it knee deep, and yelling at people to tell them to stop flooding the tank underneath us. So we didn't get shot at or anything like that, but we certainly had to learn how to work together very closely in times like that.
Okay.
But every docking day was kind of a mixture of total and complete boredom and excitement all at the same time.
Okay, so we did cover injuries, but it seemed like there may have been more opportunity for,
Yes, when you're bringing in a ship, if people aren't listening to each other, there's a way you have to cover the lines, bring the lines down the ship. We usually had 6 to a side. And then what they would also do is take a chain fall, and to get the dry dock to be in the exact spot on those blocks, you had to chain fall it over. And all this while you had about 100 people moving up and down the dry dock, making sure that our engines were working properly, our pumps were working properly, making sure the dry dock was within a certain amount of degrees of tilt. And then those of us up topside running the lines, because you didn't have to. Normally on a ship, it's the deck department runs lines, but on a floating dry dock, it's whoever gets assigned to it. And then also we had people running up and down in the docks to make, again, as I said before, looking for flooding, which occasionally we found the hard way. Okay. Running lines means that if somebody pulls too far over, if they pull the ship too far over to one wall or the other, it means the lines that we're holding can become taut, and they can break. So part of it is one of the first things we teach our newbies is how to walk around those lines and how to read those lines, because we did have one time we had a little tugboat in, and the tugboat decided to go under power while our lines were still on, and basically nobody's a hero when the lines get pulled taut. It's basically go run and hide behind the nearest piece of equipment that you can, and hope that somebody can get the word to the boat or to the officer before something snaps back and hurts somebody. And that's actually what happened one time. We had that's how somebody broke their collarbone, is
wow.
Something got pulled tight, and they were in the way as the line snapped, and it snapped back and broke their collarbone.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Since I was still stateside, with phone calls and with letters.
Okay. Did you have all the supplies that you needed all the way through?
I'm sorry. No, we did not. And again, we wanted a ship. I usually was the person who could go and find anything. I swear I was a supply sergeant, and I missed my calling as a supply sergeant.
Okay. Go ahead.
When we were on the Yarnell, we were in the shipyards, and we ran out of a lot of our safety equipment. So we were spraying paint and painting without proper gear. I can either confirm or deny how I got equipment to do my job to clean the deck so that I could weld or cut things off. I still deny that. The shipyard workers deserved it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just saying, they stole my stuff. I borrowed theirs back. And then like even on our dry dock, a lot of times we would have to go, we would go to a tender, which is a ship that's basically goes out to sea to help ships with some of their bigger maintenance issues that they may have when they're out to sea. So they're highly equipped with a lot of the basic stuff. Like what we needed were DC plugs, which are these plugs to plug up holes. Basic stuff like plumbing supplies. We had crumb piping that we would run to our heads, so we would run out of things like that. A lot of times we ended up having to buy our own safety equipment. So one of the things as a welder, you're supposed to have you're either supposed to have something that's shoes that are easy to pull off or high top shoes, and a lot of us preferred the high tops because they gave you more support and kept your feet warm. We ended up buying a lot of that stuff at the Army Navy store. A lot of times if we wanted, we like to wear, to keep our clothes clean, we like to wear, what is it, John?
Coveralls.
Coveralls, thank you. I can picture it, sorry.
Right.
The picture, trying to get it out of my mind. Coveralls, but we had to have a specific kind, especially as welders, because we worked with fire, and sometimes the military would put out coveralls that were fairly highly flammable. I'm from hearing from other vets, I'm hearing that's a continuing issue. So we would have to, a lot of times we would go buy that. There was one winter where they didn't get us our cold weather gear, so we were allowed to wear our civilian clothes to stay warm. Because while Norfolk is mid-Atlantic, we could have days when we'd wake up and the water was frozen and it could be quite cold.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so I don't even know if I need to ask you the next question, which is relevant to pressure and stress. I think you covered it.
Yeah, we're very realistic. I was not shot at. I was not in a war zone, so I'm very realistic about what we put up with, but we had a job to do still, and we still had to do it no matter what the temperature was, and whether you had the right equipment or not, you had to go find it and that's part of being in the military, is finding a way to get things done.
I understand. Did you share with us all the places that you traveled while you were in the service?
I pretty much didn't see a lot. One of my other things I had hoped for being in the military was, I was there when it was joining the Navy, see the world.
Right.
I basically saw Orlando, Philadelphia, Norfolk, and I went up to Washington, D.C. to talk to a detailer, and that's about what I got to see as far as with the military.
What was the detailer all about?
A detailer is when you're getting ready to re-up, if that's what you so choose. You can talk to somebody. The detailer at that time was somebody who was assigned to like all the HTs in the Navy.
What is HT?
A hull maintenance technician, thank you, sorry. Hull maintenance technicians, or, they were assigned to certain rates. We're not MOSs, that's a different.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
It's okay. But to see, then they basically,
You knew what I meant.
you can go
Go
talk
ahead.
to somebody and say, so what you got to offer me?
Yeah.
And because my rating had what's called a 5-2 rotation, and again, this is where I was told wrong, because I was told that my duty station as a female would have been considered ship duty. They changed that somewhere along the line when I was in, and they turned it into a shore duty billet. Mm-hmm. So I would have had to go out to sea for 10 years. And my whole goal was, in going to the military, this was pre-major internet times, was to go to school. So, and since I didn't have a job that I really wanted to do, and I wasn't, more importantly for me, was that I wasn't very good at, because I like being good at what I do and taking pride in what I do. When the detailer offered me that, I decided I wasn't going to do that, but I actually went up to go see them in person to talk to them.
Okay.
Because we were close enough to do that.
It's like a recruiter, though, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like somebody did a person, and they have they also have a person, and at our time you have it's a CC, basically a command, command person who basically worked as your recruiter.
Okay.
Also, who would talk to you about what the military can offer you. And luckily, my guy already kind of knew I wasn't going to be staying in and that I was prepping to get out. Because one of the things that I did take advantage of when I was in the military was you could, at the time, I had taken my ACT, my college prep tests, and I ended up taking the one that I hadn't taken. I hadn't taken my SATs. So the military paid for that. They paid for my CLEP scores, which is basically a college level entrance performance test. They paid for all of that because I was prepping. I knew I wanted to go to college and I was going to take advantage of what I could that last year in the military. So I made sure I took all that before I left.
Oh, okay. All right.
And they still offered me 10 and 2s, 10 years out to sea. So.
Okay. Wow. Did you keep a diary?
I did not. Not quite that organized of a person. I took a lot of pictures. I'm a picture taker.
Okay.
That's what I've been trying to drag out some of my pictures. Because again, like this year being, it's 2019 and Veterans Day, and again, it's really hard for people to understand who this person is compared to the person who I was back then.
Okay.
I got a cute little what we call the recruit picture from boot camp.
Yeah.
But to really see what I did, so I dragged out a bunch of my pictures, and each of those pictures kind of tell a story of what it was like being in the people. I took a lot of pictures of the people, a lot of pictures of the dry dock, because unless you've seen it or experienced it, it's really now I'm looking back at it, it was really cool. That part was really fascinating.
If you want to send me some, I can put them in the video.
I can do that.
Okay. You can
They're going to be pictures of pictures. Is that going to be okay?
That'll be okay.
Yeah, because this is good old fashioned film camera pictures.
I got you. Yeah, if we can get them digitized some kind of way, we'll see. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, I've got a few on my phone.
How did you get? Okay, well, those will work. How did you get along with officers and your fellow enlisted?
My husband's laughing.
Here it comes. It's all coming out now.
Yes, it will come out now. It's very difficult in some ways. I'm lucky I didn't get some of the overt stuff that some of the women did. And certainly we know of things that happened.
Right.
We'll start there. Again, I was in a very male-dominated rate, and I'm kind of a geeky person who also personality-wise probably didn't fit in well with that. Not just being female, but somebody who knew this was a stepping stone to hopefully something else is what I was looking for.
Right.
They don't send the best people the best officers anyways, to something like a dry dock. It's basically people that they just aren't going to kick, they don't have enough on them to kick out. I will say that my last commander, my last captain, everybody who's in charge of a vessel is called a captain, even if they're not at the captain rank. My last guy was awesome, and I really want to shout out to him because he really got it. He took care of us as enlisted. He took pride in what he did. He had been working on dry docks pretty much his whole time. He knew what it took to bring things in safely. He's the one who we figured out, these are the parameters we really are supposed to be bringing things in.
Right.
So people don't get hurt, because nobody got hurt under his watch. So I have to give props. Not everybody we dealt with was bad. Mm-hmm. But we had a lot of people who basically it was just a place to check off on their list. I could go on, and I don't want to right now, but so we got a lot of those kinds of people that showed up. We had a lot of really great enlisted people who took a lot of pride in what they did. Excellent welders, which is why I knew I was not going to do it. I couldn't compare.
Welding?
Yeah, welding.
Okay.
We had some great people. It takes people. A ship is more than, it's really easy on the recruiting posters. You see the pretty airplanes. You see the nicely clean deck and everybody in their pretty whites and blues and things. And it takes a lot of people below decks and even on decks, a lot of dirty work to make those ships look beautiful and make those things run. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Take your time.
Apparently emotional today.
That's okay.
So I met a lot of very interesting people. You learn, like I said, not all my officers were bad, but we had certainly quite a number of them that were, I don't know how to say it without sounding like sour grapes, but a lot of people who took out their pettiness out on people who really couldn't
Defend themselves.
really didn't have a way to fight back, especially back then. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I never went to college.
Is why?
Because in the military, you don't do anything without the permission of the people above you. And they have to have a buy-in to what you're doing. And I never had that. So,
If you'd like to stop, you can stop.
yeah,
Or-
just for a moment.
Sure. Oh, that.
Because, there were a lot of good times. And I wasn't sexually assaulted, but certainly because, how do you put it nicely? Certainly because I was a person who wasn't going to be pushed into doing certain things. I know my career wasn't going to go as far as it could have. It's one of the major reasons why I got out. Because I learned really early is that, while there were a lot of good officers, there weren't enough. Your career could be derailed very easily in certain setups. And for some, especially on when I got back to the floating dry dock, I certainly saw something different when I was on the ship. When I was on ship, I didn't have as much of a problem. It's just a different attitude. But when I got back to my floating dry dock, it's kind of like a lot of what I had done on the ship was it was not given its due credence. I wasn't the person who partied with the right people, I guess. When I got out, as I was getting out, certain people in my command tried to write me up for things, and literally if it wasn't for my CO, if it wasn't for my CO, I probably would have lost my benefits. Because everything comes down from the CO. Your CO is the last person who signs you off before you get off before you leave to be discharged. And had that had happened, I wouldn't have had my what little GI Bill they offered at that time, because at the time it was the Montgomery GI Bill. I had to put money in you know, your E1, E2, and you're putting money, $100 of your money in for your first year, and the only way you get that money back is if you get out with an honorable discharge.
Right.
And then you have to pay for your own college. I had to basically pay for my college, and I got a little bit of a stipend that would have lasted about 2-3 years. So I didn't get a very good GI Bill coming out. So it was really important to me, and I'm kind of glad to be talking about that because sometimes amongst ourselves as veterans, we're proud of that we serve. I don't regret that I served. A lot of what I learned serving, especially appreciating the hard work people do, being able to put in hard work, hard hours, and just get the job done. That was a really important part of what I did. And I don't regret that part. But amongst ourselves, this is what we talk about people who got other people hurt because they weren't doing their job as the person in charge, about people who will keep you up for days on end to try to break you. And then when you do break, you get written up. So I think that's an important part of being in the military. There's the good part, you know, I loved the teamwork part when we all could work together and do something, and we could look at that ship sitting on the stuff, or I could say, oh look, this is what I created. You know, I could go through that dry dock and say, this is what I created, this is what I fixed. You know, this is what we did together. I think that's an important part, you know. Just being able to do this, and you know, when you need it done is a big part of what we do. I find that when I find fellow veterans, that's a lot of our attitude. Is we can just, what do you need to get done? Don't be whining about it. Let's just get this done. But I also think that other side really needs to be said. Like I said, I don't want to exaggerate it. What's happened to me has certainly happened to men and women, not just women. And I was not overtly sexually assaulted, but I certainly know that because of my gender, I did have to put up with certain things that other people didn't. So that's kind of how I look at that. So it's been very emotional. Emotional week this week with the Veterans Day. I don't know why, but it is.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you have nothing to apologize for, believe me. Not a thing. Okay, so where were you when you separated?
I was in Norfolk, Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Did you use your GI Bill after the service?
Yes.
For?
I became I used it, my GI Bill only basically paid for my AA degree. Mm-hmm. So I got an AA degree to prep for going into occupational therapy. This is one of the other fun things that I got to learn about since I knew I was getting out. I talked with a lot of people. My command had adopted a preschool, and we were allowed to go there once a week to volunteer. And I learned about different things to do with children with disabilities, and that's what I fell in love with. And I found out about the profession of occupational therapy, and that's what I worked my way through. It took a lot of years.
Okay.
But I've been an occupational therapist now for over 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I know how to put pipes together. That's one of the big things I can still do. I can make things with PVC pipe.
Okay. Did you maintain any of your friendships from the military?
For about few years, but the rates that I'm in there are people that are known to do a lot of writing. And people move on and move around the country, and and that was before the internet.
Okay. Last question. In your estimation, how has the military affected your life? And how, the experience that you had, what you accumulated, how did that whole experience affect you?
I mean, there's the good parts, again, learning to do work as a team, get things done. I mean, I take pride in what I did. And being able to go through it, I don't know, called survive. But learn how to think on your feet, learn how to work with a variety of people and meet a variety of people and know that your Midwestern small town experience isn't the only experience out there. Was really important. I learned that I will never stay at a job I don't like and can't take pride in doing. That's been a big hallmark of my adult life. Is I will give you what I have and I will do my best. But if I don't feel I'm getting it back, I will start looking for something new and different, and always try to keep doing better. I think that's a big part of what I've gotten out of it.
Okay. Do you feel like there's anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I think I shared enough. I never, from talking with a lot of my other vet friends, and it's funny because we find each other somehow, without even, I'm not a member of any vet organizations. I tend to find vet friends. I want always let people know that my experience isn't the only experience out there, that a lot of people have gone in and had much better experiences in the military. So I always tell people I don't want to scare you off. Is that this is my experience and my experience only. It will make you or it will break you, and it's partially your choice and partially what happens to you. I think it partially did both for me. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about that I can take quite a bit. I'm pretty tough.
Okay.
So, yeah. That's kind of what I'd like people to know, is that you can. It'll either be the best job you've ever had. I've had a lot of friends who had, really great experiences in the military, or I have a lot of people who've had, or like me, that kind of great stuff, and the best and the worst of times at the same time.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you for a great interview, and I would also like to thank you for your service.
Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, my pleasure.